Welcome to the Female Founder Friday podcast, a collection of inspiring conversations with the most interesting female entrepreneurs and small business owners. I'm your host, Lindsay White, and together with my incredible guests, we'll explore the struggles of being a female entrepreneur, the most important lessons, and the future of women leaders in business. And I'm really passionate about helping female entrepreneurs become the calm, confident leader their team and their business really need. That's why I've created my VIP leadership coaching program. This 3-month program is specifically designed to help high-performing women uncover their authentic leadership brand and style so they can lead more effectively in every aspect of their life and their business. And if you're ready to transform your leadership, connect with me today at highvoltageleadership.ca. My guest on this week's episode is Candice Bakx-Friesen. Candice is a top-performing realtor, entrepreneur, money coach, speaker, as well as being a busy mother of 4. She's been in the real estate investment space since 2001, and it's her candid approach to business, affinity for getting past the fluff, and really getting to the root of each challenge that makes her so effective as a coach and a mentor. Now, Candice takes that same practical approach to her life and her leadership. And she's not really as worried about being perfect and is way more focused on creating great connections, really being present and listening deeply, and being intentional in the way she blends her work and her busy life together. And Candice has got some incredible wisdom to share with us today, and I know you're going to enjoy this conversation thoroughly. Amazing. Welcome, Candice, to the Female Founder Friday podcast. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I really appreciate having you here.
Thank you. I've been looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I just want to jump right in. I want to ask you a little bit about your journey and how did you get to be where you are today, Candice?
Yeah, it has been a journey, and it's amazing how the years fly by, right? So when I was going to university, I was very set on becoming an accountant. It's what my aunt did. She was kind of a role model in my life. And then I ended up meeting my husband. I was just going to become a career woman, no kids, no marriage, just work. Met my husband, of course, everything changed, and now I've got 4 kids, so never say never in life. But right. Yeah, just ended up, I finished my Bachelor of Commerce, but instead of going into accounting, I did banking and then became a real estate agent, which I've been doing now for 14 years. And things, of course, you never know in entrepreneurship where things go, I think. And so just in having conversations with clients, more and more people were asking about money in general. And so I ended up becoming a money coach as well. So things are great. There's always, like you said, so many things that come up as a leader or as a business owner. But you learn as you go, I think. So it doesn't matter how much school you take. It's those life lessons that hit you and that you have to learn to get through in life.
Totally. I'm really curious about, so you have quite a real estate practice. How did this, talk to me a little bit more about this money coaching, how that came to be a part of what you do, and how you do it maybe a little bit.
Sure. So one of the things that my husband and I have been doing is real estate investing. And so people that we know kind of know that journey as well. So he started buying rental properties when he was 17 already. So his parents he was a good saver as a child or a teenager, and his parents kind of helped him get going in that, and they were doing real estate investing. So when we met, I was like, oh, tell me about this, because that was kind of new. But it made sense. So as we went, we just kept investing in real estate, and it was basically a retirement plan for us. So we both work more than full time, but that's something that we invest in for the future and for the kids and all that stuff. So, but anyway, nonetheless, so people knew we were doing that. And then, just in sitting down with people, when you help people buy and sell, it's really a very personal transaction, right? You really get to know people, and there's a lot of trust involved. And, so when the transaction would be done, then people would say, well, Candice, like, don't know if I should ask you this, but you seem to know about money. And then they would just start asking questions, right? And I've always had interest, obviously, in personal finance. And as a kid, I was this nerdy teenager who read personal finance books. And so just decided, that it's a great way to really help people. And so helping someone buy a house is one thing, but helping people figure out their finances and, all the ins and outs of that can be really life-changing for people, right?
Yeah.
So it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like that really captures your whole purpose, if I can call it that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. It's kind of the full circle, right? You're helping people with big transactions, and you can, help save them a lot of money or protect them from buying a house that's maybe not a great investment, right?
Right.
But it ends up being a little bit transactional. But when you do money coaching, now you're looking at the relationship of the couple and, what are their dreams, and passing those kinds of life lessons on to kids. And so it's really the legacy work that, again, from being young has always just been so important to me, thinking about the future and setting myself up, obviously, but my kids too, and now other people, just helping them really figure this piece out, because money is such a taboo subject, right? And so it just allows people to have kind of that safe place to ask those questions.
I really love that. It is. There's a lot of emotion goes into finance and money, especially in a family, between a couple, even as women in particular. I think we often struggle with that topic of money in our personal finances. There's a lot of our feelings, our emotions, sort of connected to that piece.
And think relationship issues, often it's tied to the money, but it's not necessarily the money, right? It could be that I'm stressed out, I go to the mall, I blow up a bunch of money on clothes, I come back, I feel awful, I'm more stressed out, now I have lots of debt, now I'm maybe going to take it out on my spouse. Well, it's not really, you know what I mean? It's the stress or the underlying issue. So, and we obviously all have a lot of stress in our lives, whether that's, starting businesses or growing businesses or kids or, multitude of issues that come up in life, right? So it's not always really actually about the money, but figuring out kind of what that underlying root issue is and helping people, it ends up being pretty holistic coaching, because it's not always about the money. It's figuring out, this goes back to when I was a kid and I struggled with something, or, this is my parents and I always had a rough relationship and money tied into that as a child. So now I don't want to talk about it, things like that. Right.
Totally. I mean, it's really woven throughout everything. And so much of the way, to your point, so much of the way we look at money is formatted in our childhood by the way our parents behaved, and right? Not that we have to be that, like we don't have to be our parents, but it does sort of set the groundwork, and then we have a choice at that moment to, be and some of us are spenders and some of us are savers, right? Like I even see in my own kids. I mean, I don't know if you see this. Some of my kids are savers, and others, it just burns a hole in their pocket. They can't spend it fast enough, right?
Yeah. I have one that will try and order king crab when we go to a nicer restaurant. And the other one's stressed out that we're at a nice restaurant because he's like, why don't we just go eat hot dogs? Why are we even here? So it's just funny how kids are. But again, it's all those personalities, those money personalities too, that are in families.
That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah, that must make for interesting dinner conversations. So, I mean, Candice, you've been doing this. You built a successful real estate practice. I love how the money coaching really links into that, because purchasing our homes, that's one of the biggest purchases. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those are big numbers for most of us normal people.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's probably a great story about somewhere that you have messed it up or made a mistake along the way. Would you be brave enough to share something like that with us?
Oh man, I think that there's always different things that I could probably come up with 100 stories. I think one of the most common ones when you're starting out is not knowing how to line up possession dates or forgetting. And if you swap those dates, then you have someone who's homeless, right? So you take possession of the house too soon.
Yeah.
Too late, and you give up the house that you're living in too soon. So that's obviously one. But I don't know if there's any sort of major mistakes other than that I can think of. You know, knock on wood, never been to court or anything like that. But yeah, I think even just within my business, I've grown from one person to having multiple staff. And I think that's something that, again, you know, yes, I took university training and I have my Bachelor of Commerce, and we go over, you know, human resources and all these things. But ultimately, you know, hiring people who are older than you, you know, when you're very young and you're starting out a business, or going from one person to having an employee, and how do you figure out how to do that, and you know, how many hours you start with, and all these different things that I find, even with helping new agents that enter the business, and as they grow their business, it's really hard to kind of figure out that growth piece. And you know, I think just employee struggles is just a common thing, right? You get the perfect person, and then they go on mat leave, or they, you know, find something else, and think they're going to stay with you forever, and not taking those things personally, right? So growth in any business is always a challenge, and running it, you know, with kids, and you know, having babies while you're trying to run a business. And I think it's just, there's constant juggling. That's the hardest part of any business.
So, you know what, totally two themes, Candice, that I spend a lot of time on with my clients. And the first one really is around team, people, culture. And it is a really big step for a business owner to hire that first employee. That is a big leap of faith. It's trust in yourself and your ability to lead, as much as it is trust that you found the right person and they're going to do a good job. Like, do you know, like, it's as much about trusting yourself as it is about trusting someone else. And that is a really big step. And I work a lot with solopreneurs that are ready to grow, that just find that step really hard to take. And then the second point you kind of made was around blending your work and life together, right? Like that is an ongoing struggle, particularly for, you know, female entrepreneurs like you and I, who are trying to be successful in our business, but also trying to find success as a mom, as a partner, you know, a wife, a sister, a girlfriend, right? Trying to find space for the things that we love to do that we don't necessarily get paid for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That blending of work and life is really challenging. So I'm curious, you have 4 kids, you have a team. How do you create that blend, Candice? What makes that work for you?
That's like, I think the question I get asked the most from people are like, how do you do all of the things? And I think that the biggest thing is that I don't put pressure on myself to have the perfect anything. Life is not perfect. And so work-life balance is such a bad term, I think. You know, I prefer to call it work-life integration, because it really is, everything's just fitting in, but nothing is perfect. Nothing's really perfect, right? One day I'm going to spend more time with my kids. The next day I might not see them very much. You know, it's just how the day goes, and just, I think, giving yourself grace in that, and saying, you know what, I'm doing a pretty good job in all of it, and I will never do a perfect job in all of it at the same time, right? And so
you're speaking to my heart.
Just having those bounds.
Yeah, you're totally speaking to my heart, because I think I use work-life blend, but I think integration's a great word too. I think the idea of work-life balance, I don't think you ever, or if you do, it's like a fleeting moment in time. I think it plays into that inner critical voice that tells us we're not perfect. And balance sort of leads to that perfectionist saboteur. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I love that giving yourself that grace and that space and that flexibility to take all the things and make of them what you can,
Yeah.
knowing that it's going to be beautiful, but it's probably going to be messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. My friend had this great talk the other day for this women's group that I have, and she just said, okay, so the experts say, right? It's always you need to, right?
Yeah.
You need to work out 20 minutes and you need to meditate and you need to all these things. She's like, what if you just spend 5 minutes doing what you can for exercise? What if you just quickly do some push-ups?
Mm-hmm.
That's better than nothing, but why does it have to be the 20 minutes, the this, the that? Like, we're never going to eat perfect every day. We're not going to exercise exactly what they say every day. So stop like feeling so guilty about all these things that aren't perfect. You're doing a great job, then that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And you're right. I mean, a lot of that stuff that either we read it or we see it, and experts say, who are these experts? And do they have a family and children and in-laws and a busy, coaching or consulting or real estate practice? I sincerely doubt it. They're sitting around thinking this crap up. So I love that she's challenging that idea that somehow there's this mythological expert that is all knowing and all seeing. Yeah. You walk a mile in my shoes and then tell me if that's possible. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like people say, oh, like I want to do what you're doing, Candice. And I'm thinking, no, you don't. You really don't. Right. This is not the answer. This is not the be all end all. Right. It works for me, but what works for me doesn't work for you. So it's really about, instead of looking at what everyone else is doing, like what's working for me and am I happy, instead of looking at everybody else and saying, man, they get together with their friends more. I work so much. That's not good. Again, we're so hard on ourselves. But if you're happy doing what you're doing, then just keep doing it. Don't worry about what everyone's saying all the time.
I love it. I love it. Some really beautiful, beautiful lessons in there. And I think it can be very difficult. I get caught up in this too, right? We're scrolling through Instagram or even LinkedIn or any of those places we go and hang out. And the appeal is it looks great.
Yeah.
And the reality is 99 times out of 100, it's a total illusion.
Yeah.
It's a filter. It's been altered.
Exactly.
It's a shoot on a location. It's a backdrop. It's not even real. Yeah. And we get down that rabbit hole and get into the shame a bit about I'm not enough, right? I'm not enough.
Right.
Well, I love your approach, which is if you're happy with what you are, that's okay. Like that's good.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's awesome.
And I think when we're not getting together with our friends and stuff and the people who just help us be grounded, then that kind of stuff just interferes too, right? But we just have to really, I'm big on making appointments with whether it's family or friends, right? But we have to book it. It seems so exciting to just, have everything very last minute and I'll get together with my friends on the weekend, but really if I don't book things, it doesn't happen, right? So just schedule that stuff out. But again, if you know that during COVID, for example, for myself, I noticed so quickly that when I couldn't get together with my friends and go for coffee, that was huge.
Yeah.
And I really, really missed it, right? And I know that brings me a lot of joy. So it's something that I know I need to incorporate regularly or else that starts to affect me, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's just scheduling it, making sure it happens, and it's all that, in quote, self-care stuff, but it doesn't have to be a bubble bath, it doesn't have to be just whatever makes you happy. So just really analyze your day, know what gives you energy, and make sure that you're doing that regularly, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's really beautiful advice to any small business owner, entrepreneur, but particularly to those of us that are, females, working moms, that it's a tricky space and you got to find something to do that just gives you joy, not because it serves any other purpose. It just makes you happy. That's self-care. That's self-care. I mean, if it's a bubble bath that makes you happy, then do it. But I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't get, that's not my thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. I absolutely love that. One of the questions that I've added here for season 2 of the podcast, and I'm super curious to ask you this one, is how do you lead? Like, what does that look like for you?
I'm definitely servant leadership, definitely. And I know I always have been. That's always been really important to me. And just making sure, again, that we spend time together. So the women who, it's all women, it just happens to be, I have nothing against men, but women that work for me, a lot of them are remote, even pre-COVID. One lady works very closely with me, but otherwise a lot of it's remote, and that affects relationships, right? So we make sure that we're getting together for sure once a month, having coffee, having some fun, or we'll go have, go to an escape room together or whatever that looks like, right? But just making sure that we're still spending the time, and just being very, I try my best to really, listen, I guess, and read between the lines of like, what do they need, right? It's, yes, I'm, in quotes, the boss. I hate that word, but it's really about creating that team atmosphere and how can I serve? So whether that's clients, I could do a DocuSign where I just send the documents to sign, but I can also show up, and that's just, it makes a difference, right? Showing up to serve, to, what do you need? You need a referral, I'll get you that, right? And that translates, I think, to, I do my best anyway, right? But to all people that are involved. So whether that's clients or employees, just what do you need? How can I help? Whether that's their personal life or creating, again, that team that we serve each other for the common benefit of our business. So
I really love that. I mean, people toss around this phrase servant leadership. Some of these people, I'm not sure they actually know what it means. But I love that you look at serving your team the same way that you look at serving your clients. And I think that's where the beauty of servant leadership lives, is in approaching it in that way. Like, the people that work for you, yes, you're the boss. I mean, the buck stops with you, right?
Yeah.
Fair. Hey, it's got it, that's, you take on the big risk, big reward, right? But when we approach our team as though they are our client, that shifts the way we show up as a leader. And we really do look to serve them so that they can do their very best work for us. And
sometimes we think about like the old org chart, right? And in a big corporation, there is need for that. But when I think of our team, I think of all of us on a horizontal line, right? We're all working together. Yes, technically I'm higher, and my one employee who's been with me for like 11 years, she's second in command, kind of, right? But really, when it comes down to it, when something needs to get done, who's doing it? It could be me, it could be you, you don't have time, I'll do it, right? Let's just get it done. It's not about correcting somebody for the sake of picking on somebody. It's more, okay, we have to be corrected. I'm not going to take offense, because again, it's about having the common good as the forefront focus, right?
Yeah, I really love that. I think, and you're right. I mean, I do, with some of my clients, I do get into like organizational design, which in sort of HR talent lingo, we talk about boxes and wires, right? Your name goes in the little box on the org chart, and there's a little wire that connects to another box. But realistically, that's just a visual. That's just to show people things. It is the interplay and interconnection of accountabilities inside of a system, a team, a structure, a business. That's what really counts. It's the articulation of what am I accountable for, and how am I accountable to these other people that my little box connects to. That's the powerful part of having an organizational design and structure that's meaningful, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
totally flat, whether it's hierarchical, whatever
Yeah.
works for your business. But it's
Yeah.
really about how does that interconnect together, and it's about the connections and the conversations. And that's sort of what I hear you saying is like, we are connected. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful, Candice.
Yeah. And, like, if one lady, her parents had a lot of health concerns for one of the, for about a year. And we were all just like, you take what time you need. We're all filling in. We're going to make this work. Right.
Yeah.
Not, oh, you're taking another day off again. Right.
Yeah.
It's all in that attitude again, too. Right. Like, we'll serve because you need help right now in your roles. Right. And we're here for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I love that. I love that service value just is in every piece of what you're doing. And I mean, I know that you serve your clients as they're moving through the journey of buying a house. And the greatest real estate agents in the world, they serve as a real trusted advisor. And I know that's where you kind of are living. But really enabling everyone in the business to buy into that space of service as a value, I think is actually maybe like an undersold value in a business. Like we have, respect or integrity, success, but service, I think maybe one that needs to rise to the top a little bit more. And you've articulated it so beautifully.
Well, and you think back to like my grandparents, so life in the 1950s or whatever, your neighbor needed something. They came over and they asked for flour or whatever it was. Now, do we even know our neighbors, right? So there's a piece of that in society in general that's missing. And I think when I look back at what life was, even when I was growing up in the 80s, it was taking Saturday off or Sunday off, and we're going to get together. And people had these, Sunday dinners and things like that, right? But those connections are missing. And I think hopefully COVID is one of the things, the benefits of that came out of it is that we really recognize connection a lot more, right? But yeah, some of that stuff I think we could go back to, and it would be something that's really missing that I think would enhance a lot of people's lives. Personally, I'm not an expert on depression and mental health, but I think that's also a missing piece, that we're not having enough really great connection in life, whether that's coworkers or
it's true,
family, friends. We're missing some of those deeper relationships. Everything's too surface. And I think mental health could really benefit in general from that too.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think it takes an expert to know. I mean, we are social animals. We're just, the phrase I like to use is we're just houseplants with complicated emotions, right?
Yeah.
But it's more than that, right? Like we need connection. We crave it. We all want to be seen and heard and feel valued. And so I don't think it takes an expert to know that that's something that, we've missed some of those connections being isolated over the last year and a half. And I see people with real joy in their faces as we do reconnect and start moving around a bit. I really see that. But I love that that's been a focus, even with your team being remote. And I know as a real estate agent, it must have been real tricky to operate during COVID. I mean, you're trying to create that same feeling and that same connection. And I really love that, because I do think that that's something that's really key to having a great team and having a great family and having great relationships, right? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of businesses, the thought is, oh, now we're all going to be remote. But I question that, and I think within, a few years, we're going to start seeing people going back to the office who thought that remote was going to work.
Perhaps,
just because those connections are really important for building trust in an organization. So it can be done, but I think it can be done better in an office.
And I wonder if, to your point, how are we going to find that? Right? Because I think there's aspects of working remotely we have enjoyed. But you're right.
Yeah.
There's stuff that's better done eyeball to eyeball. So, how do we kind of ebb and flow that a bit? Find that blend of work and work, I guess. Instead of work and life, we blend the work and the work. And the dust is going to start, it's going to start settling out here later this year and even into next. And you're right. Some people may say, hey, this working remotely stuff is for the birds. I'm not happy at home. I need to come back more, maybe a couple more days. I think it'll be really interesting to see. And I hope organizations can embrace a bit more flexibility. Just being flexible with people. Yeah. As long as the work gets done and it gets done in a real high quality way and the connections can be maintained, does it really matter where people are? Right. Right? I think there's room to play, I guess is what I'm saying. So I love that. I really love that, Candice. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat today and really learn about you as a female founder. And some of the incredible things that you do in your business. I really love it. It's been so many great kernels of wisdom, and it's just been super great to connect with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing, because it's so important that we can see, what other people are doing or into other people's businesses. And it just gives, I think, so much insight into, different insight into thinking about other ways of doing business, right? And this is awesome. Thank you.
I love it. My pleasure, Candice. To everyone tuning in today, thanks for being a part of the Female Founder Friday podcast. I really loved Candice's approach to leadership and how she focuses on serving her team in the same way that she serves her clients, and I know how impactful that can be. And you can find out more about Candice and what she does on her website, investorsmarts.ca, and she's got some great programs there. And of course, you can find me on Instagram, and I would love if you would follow me at High Volt Leadership. The Female Founder Friday podcast has a goal to impact 1,000 listeners, and it would mean the world to me if you left this episode a 5-star review and shared it with your friends. Let's engage 1,000 female entrepreneurs and really amplify the message. Thanks again for being part of the show, and don't forget to connect with me at highvoltageleadership.ca.